Regret is the silent thief of joy, robbing us of our ability to move forward. It lingers in the mind, whispering reminders of past mistakes and missed opportunities. But what if you could live in a way that left no room for regret? What if, instead of looking back in sorrow, you looked forward with clarity and resolve? This is the essence of Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches us to master our emotions, embrace our fate, and live fully in the present. The Stoics did not dwell on what could have been. They focused only on what is and what can be done now. They understood that regret is merely a byproduct of an untrained mind clinging to an unchangeable past. Through their wisdom, they developed principles that help us let go, accept, and act decisively. In this guide, you will learn how to apply Stoic principles to eliminate regret from your life. You will discover the mindset shifts and practical exercises that will allow you to break free from the weight of the past and live with intention. Whether you struggle with decisions left unmade, words left unsaid, or chances not taken, the lessons ahead will help you transform regret into a source of strength. It is time to reclaim your peace of mind and embrace a life without regret. The Stoics paved the way. Now it is your turn to walk it. Chapter 1. The Weight of Regret and the Stoic Mindset. Regret is a heavy burden, one that shackles the mind to moments that no longer exist. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that to live with regret was to live in opposition to reason. Regret pulls a person backward, but life only moves forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly." This mindset erases the power of regret by shifting your attention to what can still be done. The truth is, regret arises when you assign too much weight to your past mistakes. The Stoics believed that you are not your past, but the sum of your present choices. Seneca reminded us, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." If you carry your past as a burden, you are allowing a ghost to dictate the actions of a living being. What is gone is gone. Your power lies in how you act now. One of the most common regrets people carry is wasted time. Seneca called this out directly. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. People waste time as if they have an unlimited supply, then regret its loss when it's too late. The Stoic way to counter this regret is simple. Treat every moment as if it were borrowed, because it is. A practical approach to shedding regret is through premeditatio malorum, the practice of visualizing possible future losses and hardships. If you regret a past decision, consider what would happen if you kept dwelling on it. Would it improve your present? Would it alter what has already occurred? The answer is always no. The only logical course is to accept it and move forward with wisdom. To expand on this, it is useful to engage in retrospective reflection, but not in a way that fuels self-criticism. Instead, consider mistakes as necessary lessons that refine your character. The Stoics would advise keeping a journal to review past events objectively, identifying the wisdom gained rather than lamenting the decisions made. Writing down how past regrets have shaped you for the better can help neutralize their emotional weight. Another valuable tool is the dichotomy of control. Recognizing that certain events are outside of your influence frees you from the chains of regret. Regret over something uncontrollable is futile. Ask yourself, did I act with virtue? Did I do my best given the circumstances? If the answer is yes, regret has no place. If the answer is no, then apply the lesson and adjust your future actions. Growth is the ultimate antidote to regret. Furthermore, regrets often stem from unrealistic expectations. The Stoics emphasize the importance of tempering expectations with reality. If you regret not achieving a certain goal, examine whether that goal was ever within your reasonable grasp. Adjusting your mindset to accept that some outcomes are simply not meant to be removes unnecessary suffering. Lastly, practice daily renewal. Each morning, remind yourself that today is an opportunity to act in accordance with wisdom and virtue. Each evening, reflect on what went well rather than focusing solely on mistakes. By living in alignment with Stoic principles, you ensure that regret is replaced with self-mastery and forward momentum. Chapter 2. Love, Loss, and Letting Go, the Stoic Way. Regret has a way of clinging to us, especially when it comes to love. The relationships that didn't last, the words left unsaid, the moments we wish we could rewrite. The heart, unlike the mind, does not let go so easily. But the Stoics would remind us, love, like everything else, is fleeting. To hold on too tightly to something impermanent is to guarantee suffering. Epictetus once said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of things." The past relationship itself is not the source of suffering. It is the attachment to it, the unwillingness to let go of the story we keep telling ourselves about what it meant, what it should have been, or what it could be if only things were different. The Stoics did not reject love, they simply refused to be enslaved by it. Seneca wrote, "If you wish to be loved, love." But he also taught that true love does not possess, it accepts. Loving someone does not mean trying to keep them forever. It means appreciating them in the moment and understanding that all things, including love, are subject to change. Think of love as a bird that lands on your shoulder. You may enjoy its presence, admire its beauty, but if you try to grip it too tightly, you will either harm it or drive it away. Love is meant to be experienced, not controlled. One of the greatest regrets in love is the idea that we lost the one. The truth is, there is no singular person meant for us. This belief is an illusion that keeps us trapped in the past. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart." The past relationships we mourn were meant to shape us, not to define our future. A person who dwells on lost love forgets the greatest truth of all. They are still here. The world continues. Love is not confined to one person, one moment, or one memory. It is an ever-moving river, and we are meant to flow with it, not stagnate in its past waters. Have you ever stared at an old message thread, knowing you shouldn't, yet unable to look away? Maybe you scroll through pictures, frozen moments of a past life that no longer belongs to you. There's a special kind of regret that comes with lost love, a regret wrapped in what-ifs and should-have-beens. It's the kind of pain that lingers in quiet moments, whispering stories of missed chances and words left unsaid. The Stoics knew this pain. They too lived, loved, and lost. But their approach to relationships was rooted in a deep understanding of impermanence. Epictetus famously said, "When you kiss your child, your brother, your friend, remind yourself that you love a mortal." Love, in the Stoic sense, was not about possession, it was about appreciation, and loss was not a tragedy, but a certainty. To regret a lost relationship is to misunderstand its nature. Love is never meant to be owned, only experienced. The moment we cling to it, we set ourselves up for suffering. Many people find themselves replaying the past like a movie, editing scenes in their minds, convincing themselves that if they had just been more patient, more present, or less afraid, things would have been different. They torture themselves with the illusion of control over something that has already happened. The Stoics would remind us that the past is gone. No amount of mental bargaining will change it. Regret is a phantom that keeps us anchored to a world that no longer exists. So how do we let go? Seneca offers a way forward. What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears. But not tears of sorrow, tears of understanding. We must accept that pain is a teacher, not a punishment. The end of love is not a failure, but a transition. It is a lesson wrapped in loss. Instead of mourning what is gone, we must ask, what did this teach me? Did it show me my capacity to care, my strength to endure? Did it highlight my weaknesses, areas I must grow? If so, then was it truly a loss, or was it a necessary step in my evolution? The Stoics would advise us not to suppress our emotions, but to master them. Here are a few ways to apply their wisdom to moving past regret in relationships. Reframe the past. Instead of seeing the relationship as something lost, see it as something that contributed to your growth. What did it teach you? How did it shape the person you are today? Practice amor fati. Love your fate. If that relationship ended, it was meant to. Accept that life unfolds as it should, even if we don't always understand it in the moment. Detach from the idea of control. You cannot change the past, nor can you make someone stay if they are meant to leave. True peace comes from embracing impermanence. Focus on the present. Regret lives in the past. Happiness, healing, and new love exist only in the present. Shift your energy toward what is happening now, not what once was. Engage in self-reflection. Journaling, meditating, or simply sitting in quiet thought can help you recognize patterns and break free from the cycles that keep you stuck in regret. Regret over lost love is natural, but it does not have to be a life sentence. The Stoics teach us that we do not own love, we only get to experience it. And when it passes, we must let it go with gratitude rather than sorrow, because the only true tragedy is allowing the past to steal the joy of the present. So if you are still carrying the weight of an old love, ask yourself, is it worth your peace? Is it worth your future? Let it go, not because it was unimportant, but because you are too important to be held back by what is already gone. In love, in loss, in all things, there is only forward. That is the way of the Stoics. That is the way to have no regrets. To dwell on what has passed is to remain shackled to an illusion, mistaking memories for something tangible. The past, no matter how deeply felt, remains untouchable, and so the only true choice is to embrace the present and what lies ahead. The Stoics remind us that everything is transient. Every relationship, every moment of joy, every heartbreak is part of the greater cycle of life, flowing like a river that never stops. Regret, then, serves no function but to slow us down, holding us in place while the current of life continues to move forward. Rather than mourning what is lost, we must honor it. We must take from it the lessons it offers, the strength it imparts, and carry those forward. Every moment of joy, every trial of sorrow has contributed to the person we are today. By accepting this truth, we transform regret into wisdom, allowing it to fuel our growth rather than weigh us down. To truly embrace life without regret is to acknowledge that every experience, whether filled with joy or sorrow, has shaped us, refined us, and prepared us for what comes next. There is no wasted love, no time lost, only chapters of a story that continuously unfolds. It is in recognizing that even pain serves a purpose that we free ourselves from its grasp. By shifting our perspective, we begin to see that love, even when it ends, does not diminish. It becomes part of the fabric of our existence, woven into the way we love, learn, and connect in the future. Our past relationships, no matter how they ended, were stepping stones necessary for the person we are becoming. And in that understanding, we find peace. True peace comes not from clinging to the past, but from embracing its lessons with gratitude. We move forward with the knowledge that every loss has prepared us for greater love, greater resilience, and deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Chapter 3. The Art of Acceptance. Amor fati. To have no regrets, you must embrace amor fati, the love of fate. This is the Stoic practice of accepting and even loving everything that happens. Nietzsche later expanded on this idea, urging us to not just accept our past, but to wish for it to happen again in an eternal loop. That might seem extreme, but it removes regret entirely. If you truly accept everything that has led you to this moment, regret loses its grip. Epictetus taught that it is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. If you regret something, it means you are still judging it as negative. Change your perspective, and you change your relationship with the past. What if that mistake made you stronger? What if that failure led to unexpected growth? The Stoics would say that everything happens as it should. The only real mistake is failing to learn from an experience. One exercise to apply amor fati is to write down every major regret you have. Then, for each one, list how that event contributed to your current self. Did a failed relationship make you more resilient? Did a lost opportunity force you to seek a better one? By reframing each regret, you begin to see that life unfolds with perfect logic, whether or not you recognize it in the moment. Chapter 4. The Illusion of Control, Letting Go of the Unchangeable. Regret often stems from wishing the past could be altered, but the past is outside your control. The Stoics divided life into two categories: what you can control and what you cannot. Regret is nothing more than an attachment to what is unchangeable. It is, as Epictetus said, irrational. There is only one solution: detach from what is outside your control. The past is an external event now. It is no more yours than the weather. You do not regret a storm for happening. You prepare for the next one. Treat the past the same way. Learn from it, but do not wish it away. Instead of clinging to past errors, view them as stepping stones to greater wisdom. The Stoics taught that obstacles are simply raw materials for growth. When you shift your mindset from loss to learning, regret transforms into gratitude for the lessons acquired. A Stoic exercise to reinforce this is the view from above technique. Imagine yourself from a bird's eye view. Then zoom out until you see the entire planet. From this perspective, do your past mistakes still seem as important? Probably not. Regret shrinks in significance when you broaden your vision. Now take this exercise a step further. Imagine yourself centuries in the future, as if looking back on history. Would this mistake be remembered at all? Likely not. Recognizing the impermanence of events liberates you from unnecessary anguish. Consider how your life would be different if your past had unfolded as you wished. Would you be more fulfilled, or would you simply face different struggles? Often, what we regret not happening was never meant to be, and what did happen shaped us in unexpected yet beneficial ways. When regret tempts you to wish for a different past, remember that every moment leading up to now has contributed to the person you are today. By choosing acceptance and perspective, you set yourself free from the prison of what-ifs and walk forward with confidence. Chapter 5. The Courage to Act, Eliminating Future Regret. Living without regret is not just about letting go of the past, it's also about acting decisively in the present. The Stoics valued courage, especially the courage to act according to virtue. If you hesitate out of fear and later regret your inaction, you are failing the Stoic principle of prohairesis, or moral choice. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." The lesson here is clear: act now, do not overthink. Most regret comes from inaction, not action. People regret not telling someone they loved them, not taking a risk, not standing up for themselves. The cure is simple. When faced with a choice, lean toward boldness. To further emphasize this, the Stoics encouraged us to confront our fears head-on. Fear often paralyzes action, leading to regrets that accumulate over time. A method to counteract this is fear setting, a practice introduced by Tim Ferriss but inspired by Stoicism. Write down the worst possible outcomes of a decision, assess their actual severity, and prepare countermeasures. In most cases, you will realize the fear is exaggerated and the risk is manageable. Another exercise is to engage in self-inquiry. Whenever hesitation arises, ask yourself, if I were to look back at this moment a year from now, would I regret not taking action? If the answer is yes, then act now. The Stoics taught that delaying necessary action is an irrational hesitation that only fuels regret. By taking decisive steps forward, you ensure that your life is built on meaningful choices rather than passive inaction. Visualizing your future self is a powerful Stoic technique. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. Would this future version of you be grateful that you took action today, or would they be burdened by hesitation? Creating a vivid mental picture of your future self as a stronger, wiser person because of today's choices helps cultivate confidence in decision-making. Another exercise to strengthen bold action is the courage challenge. Choose something minor yet uncomfortable, starting a conversation with a stranger, speaking up in a meeting, or tackling a difficult task head-on. By training yourself to act despite discomfort in small ways, you prepare yourself for more significant decisions where hesitation could lead to regret. Lastly, remember that true courage lies in consistency. Small, everyday actions build the foundation of a regret-free life. By practicing virtue in minor decisions, you prepare yourself for the weightier ones. Living with intentionality today ensures that you do not look back with sorrow tomorrow. As Seneca said, begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. Chapter 6. Finding peace in the present. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, but the present is real. The Stoics constantly emphasized the power of now. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Why is this important? Because when you are fully engaged in the present, regret has no room to exist. Regret is the mind's way of dwelling in a reality that no longer exists. If you train yourself to live in the present moment, regret becomes irrelevant. By focusing entirely on the now, you remove the mental clutter that clouds judgment and breeds dissatisfaction. The Stoics believed that happiness is a byproduct of present engagement rather than a destination to be reached. When you detach from past burdens and future anxieties, you gain clarity and inner peace. One effective way to anchor yourself in the present is through intentional breathing exercises. Take slow, deliberate breaths and remind yourself that you are here, now. This simple practice shifts awareness away from regrets and toward the beauty of each passing moment. Additionally, engaging in deep work, immersing yourself fully in a task, helps reinforce the idea that presence is the key to fulfillment. Beyond internal practices, you can also cultivate presence in relationships. When you converse with someone, actively listen instead of rehearsing responses or thinking of past experiences. By being fully present in human interactions, you foster stronger connections and prevent future regrets about missed opportunities to engage more meaningfully. Training yourself to exist fully in the now is the antidote to regret. Each moment offers a chance to reset, to embrace life as it unfolds, and to choose actions that align with wisdom and virtue. To truly embody this philosophy, one must cultivate an awareness of the present through deliberate practice. Many people are trapped in the cycle of reliving the past or fearing the future, but the Stoics understood that dwelling on what cannot be controlled is a waste of mental energy. Instead, they urged individuals to embrace the current moment fully, directing their focus only to what they can actively influence. One practical way to reinforce this mindset is to engage in mindfulness meditation, a practice that, though not explicitly Stoic, aligns well with their principles. By sitting quietly, observing the breath, and noticing thoughts without attachment, one trains the mind to remain present. This not only alleviates regret, but also cultivates mental resilience against anxiety about the future. Another exercise is attention anchoring, choosing specific activities where you commit to being fully engaged. Whether eating a meal, speaking with a friend, or walking outdoors, make an effort to focus entirely on the experience. This eliminates the tendency to mentally drift into the past or worry about what is ahead, reinforcing the Stoic discipline of presence. Practicing daily gratitude is a powerful way to anchor oneself in the now. At the end of each day, write down 3 things you appreciated about the present moment. This simple habit shifts attention away from what could have been and redirects it toward the tangible beauty of life as it unfolds in real time. By actively implementing these techniques, one can free themselves from the shackles of regret and cultivate a life driven by purpose, clarity, and acceptance. The past no longer holds power, the future remains an open possibility, and the present becomes a space for action, learning, and fulfillment. Chapter 7. Mastering Emotional Resilience. Emotions, when unchecked, have the power to create deep regrets. The Stoics were masters of emotional control, understanding that only by managing our responses to events can we avoid future remorse. Seneca wisely stated, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Many of the regrets people hold on to are not even about actual events, but about exaggerated fears and emotional responses to those events. The first step to mastering emotional resilience is to recognize that feelings are temporary. Just as joy fades, so too does sorrow, anger, or disappointment. The Stoics practiced apatheia, a state of equanimity where emotions do not dictate actions. Instead of being overwhelmed by emotions, they sought to acknowledge and regulate them. A practical exercise is cognitive distancing. When a strong emotion arises, take a step back and observe it as if you were a neutral third party. Instead of thinking, "I am angry," reframe it as, "I am experiencing the sensation of anger." This subtle shift in perspective reduces the grip emotions have over your mind, allowing you to respond with reason rather than impulse. To further reinforce this, practice the pause technique. When you feel a strong emotional reaction, count to 5 before responding. This brief moment of separation between feeling and action enables you to apply rational thought rather than reacting impulsively. Over time, this habit leads to better emotional control. Another method is mindful awareness training. By engaging in daily meditation or simple breath work, you become more conscious of your emotional triggers and responses. This practice helps diminish automatic reactions and strengthens the ability to stay composed in challenging situations. Another effective method is Stoic journaling. At the end of each day, reflect on moments where emotions dictated your actions. Could you have responded differently? Would another perspective have led to a better outcome? By practicing this regularly, you gain awareness of emotional triggers and learn how to manage them proactively. Additionally, try emotional reappraisal exercises. Whenever a negative emotion arises, ask yourself, is this truly harmful or is it simply unpleasant? By distinguishing between true harm and discomfort, you can regulate your response accordingly. This mental framework allows you to cultivate resilience and prevents unnecessary suffering caused by overreaction. Finally, incorporate exposure to voluntary discomfort into your routine. By intentionally facing minor challenges, such as enduring cold showers, fasting for a short period, or engaging in difficult conversations, you build emotional toughness and develop an immunity to stresses that might otherwise disrupt your composure. Through repeated exposure, you train yourself to be less reactive and more in control of your emotions. Chapter 8. Overcoming the fear of judgment. A significant source of regret stems from worrying about what others think. Many people hold back from pursuing their goals, speaking their minds, or taking action due to fear of external judgment. The Stoics dismiss this as irrational, teaching that external opinions are beyond one's control and therefore unworthy of concern. Epictetus famously remarked, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." This statement captures the essence of independence from societal expectations. People will always have opinions, but their thoughts do not define you. The Stoics taught that true wisdom lies in focusing on what one can control, and external opinions fall firmly outside that realm. When we spend time worrying about how others perceive us, we surrender our peace of mind to forces beyond our influence. To strengthen this principle, Epictetus advised practicing detachment from praise and criticism alike. If you allow compliments to inflate your ego, you become equally vulnerable to insults deflating your confidence. Instead, cultivate an internal compass rooted in virtue and self-awareness. Ask yourself, am I acting according to reason and integrity? If the answer is yes, external judgments become irrelevant. An effective way to internalize this mindset is through deliberate exposure to potential ridicule or misunderstanding. Engage in harmless yet unconventional behaviors, voice an unpopular but thoughtful opinion, or practice voluntary humility by admitting when you do not know something. Over time, you will come to see that the world moves on regardless, and you are left standing more secure in yourself. A powerful exercise to overcome fear of judgment is the discomfort challenge. Choose an action that makes you slightly uncomfortable but is ultimately harmless, such as wearing mismatched clothes in public, asking an unconventional question, or admitting you don't know something. The goal is to desensitize yourself to social embarrassment, proving that perceived judgment has no real consequences. To further reinforce this mindset, engage in perspective shifting. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Often, fears of judgment are tied to fleeting concerns that lose significance over time. The Stoics believed in maintaining a long-term view rather than being consumed by temporary discomfort. Another method to develop resilience against judgment is exposure therapy for social fears. Start by deliberately putting yourself in minor socially uncomfortable situations and gradually escalate them. The more you experience discomfort, the more you realize that external opinions do not have the power you once thought they did. Additionally, practice verbalizing your values. When faced with criticism, remind yourself out loud or in writing why you made a particular decision. By reinforcing your reasons, you strengthen your ability to act independently rather than seeking approval. Another way to free yourself from external validation is to write down your core values. What truly matters to you? What do you stand for? Once you establish this, use it as a guiding principle in decision-making, ensuring that your actions align with your beliefs rather than external pressure. Lastly, embrace memento mori, the Stoic practice of remembering your mortality. When considering the fear of judgment, ask yourself, if today were my last day, would I still be concerned about this? This technique shifts focus from fear to action, reminding you to live in alignment with your own purpose rather than societal expectations. Chapter 9. The courage to face change. Embracing growth without regret. Change is one of the greatest sources of anxiety and regret. People often look back and wish they had adapted sooner, taken different paths, or held on to stability when life demanded evolution. The Stoics understood that change is an inevitable force, one that should be embraced rather than resisted. Seneca advised, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." The true cause of regret is not change itself, but our reluctance to accept and grow with it. We fear leaving behind the familiar, yet the only constant in life is transformation. Those who resist change find themselves trapped in the past, clinging to a version of life that no longer exists. To overcome this, it is essential to shift our perspective on change. Rather than seeing it as a loss, we should view it as an opportunity for renewal. Each shift in our circumstances presents a chance to refine our understanding, develop new skills, and cultivate resilience. The Stoics embraced this mindset, reminding us that growth arises from discomfort and that clinging to what was only stifles our potential. One effective method for embracing change without regret is intentional adaptation. This means consciously preparing for transitions rather than resisting them. Instead of lamenting an unexpected shift, ask yourself, how can I use this to improve? This question reframes change as an advantage rather than a threat. Another powerful exercise is scenario planning. The Stoics often practiced premeditatio malorum, anticipating obstacles before they occur. By mentally rehearsing different potential changes in your life and imagining how you would respond, you strengthen your ability to handle unexpected transitions with grace and wisdom. Additionally, engaging in rituals of letting go can ease the burden of transition. If you find yourself holding on to a past version of yourself, consider writing down the things you are afraid to release. This could be a former identity, a long-held belief, or even an expired relationship. Once written, symbolically discard the paper, burn it, bury it, or throw it away. This act reinforces the principle that we must make space for the new by releasing the old. By adopting these practices, we not only accept change, but welcome it, understanding that each new phase of life is an opportunity to move forward with wisdom rather than remain trapped in the regret of what once was. A powerful Stoic exercise is adaptive thinking. Whenever faced with an unexpected shift in life, instead of lamenting what was lost, immediately ask, what opportunity does this present? This practice redirects the mind from mourning change to actively engaging with it. The more we train ourselves to seek possibilities rather than regret losses, the more adaptable we become. Another way to strengthen resilience toward change is reflecting on past transitions. Consider moments in your life where you initially resisted change but later realized it was beneficial. By reviewing past transformations, you reinforce the understanding that even difficult changes often lead to personal growth and new opportunities. Change is not the enemy, resistance to it is. The more we practice embracing transition, the more empowered we become to face future changes with confidence and wisdom. Additionally, try engaging in preemptive reflection. Instead of waiting for regret to arise, periodically review your current situation and ask, if I stay on this path, will I regret not making a change later? This exercise allows you to proactively shape your future and minimize regret through intentional decisions rather than reactive adjustments. Practice letting go of the past with intention. Write down aspects of your life you are struggling to release, a job, a relationship, an old dream, and describe how holding on to them is preventing your progress. Then symbolically release these attachments by discarding the paper, reinforcing the lesson that moving forward is necessary for growth. Another approach is to engage in visualization exercises, where you picture yourself free from regret, fully embracing the present and future without being weighed down by past hesitations. Embracing change with courage allows you to navigate life without regret, knowing that each new challenge is a step toward growth rather than a loss to be mourned. The key is to see each shift in life as a doorway to a better, stronger version of yourself, and to move forward with deliberate intention rather than fearful hesitation. Chapter 10. The Discipline of Gratitude. Self-reflection is one of the most powerful tools for eliminating regret. The Stoics believed that regularly examining one's actions, thoughts, and decisions leads to wisdom and clarity. Seneca advised, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day and go over what I have done and said." This daily reflection allows us to course correct and ensures that our lives align with our highest values. By dedicating time to introspection, we gain a greater understanding of ourselves, our motivations, and our mistakes. The key is to reflect not with self-judgment, but with curiosity and a desire to grow. The Stoics did not view errors as failures, but as lessons. A practical exercise is to set aside time each evening to ask yourself, did I act with wisdom today? Did I let emotions dictate my responses? Did I live according to my values? By making this a habit, you train your mind to focus on improvement rather than regret. To deepen this practice, consider writing a letter to your past self. Acknowledge the lessons learned and express gratitude for the challenges that shaped you. This can be a powerful way to transform regret into appreciation for personal growth. Another effective exercise is the mirror technique, where you look at yourself in the mirror and speak aloud about what you've learned from your choices. This verbal acknowledgement strengthens self-awareness and allows you to process your experiences with greater clarity. Additionally, meditative reflection can be useful in aligning your daily actions with your long-term goals. Spend a few minutes in silence, contemplating whether you are progressing in a direction you truly desire. If you find misalignment, take immediate steps to adjust your course rather than letting small regrets accumulate into major life dissatisfaction. Furthermore, mentorship and discussion can enhance self-reflection. Seek conversations with wise individuals or close friends who can offer an outside perspective on your actions and help you see areas for improvement you may have overlooked. Through consistent self-examination and these structured exercises, we eliminate the need for regret. We learn, adjust, and move forward with wisdom, ensuring that each new day is an improvement over the last, not a source of longing for what could have been. Chapter 11. Living each day as if it were your last. Imagine waking up each morning with the awareness that today could be your last. How differently would you approach your relationships, your ambitions, your worries? The Stoics encouraged this perspective not to inspire fear, but to inspire urgency in the way we live. Memento mori, remember you must die, was a phrase carved into their philosophy, not as a dark omen, but as a guiding principle for a meaningful life. Seneca wrote, "You are afraid of dying. But come now, how is this life of yours anything but death?" In other words, merely existing without truly living is its own form of death. Too often we delay our dreams, postpone our joy, and assume there will always be another day. But what if there isn't? What if the future we keep waiting for never comes? The philosophy of living each day as if it were your last aligns seamlessly with the idea of having no regrets. When we acknowledge the fleeting nature of time, we are compelled to make decisions that resonate with our core values. The Stoics remind us that hesitation, avoidance, and procrastination often lead to remorse. By choosing to act with purpose and authenticity in each moment, we mitigate the possibility of future regret. A life without regret is not one devoid of mistakes, but one where mistakes become lessons rather than burdens. We must learn to forgive ourselves for past missteps and see them as necessary growth points. The fear of failure or rejection often holds us back, but when viewed through the lens of memento mori, we realize that these fears are trivial in the grand scheme of life. Each misstep is simply part of our journey, shaping who we are meant to become. Embracing the present moment allows us to be fully engaged in our relationships. How often do we let minor grievances or distractions pull us away from meaningful conversations? The regret of lost time with loved ones is one of the heaviest burdens to bear. By treating each encounter as if it might be the last, we ensure that we express our appreciation, love, and gratitude freely, leaving no room for the pain of unspoken words. By living with no regrets, we free ourselves from the weight of what could have been. Instead of lamenting missed opportunities, we focus on what we can do now. The past is immutable, but the present is within our control. This shift in perspective allows us to move forward with confidence, unshackled from the chains of past indecision or sorrow. Ultimately, the essence of "have no regrets" is about embracing life fully. It is about finding the courage to take risks, to speak our truths, and to live in a way that aligns with our highest values. The Stoics remind us that death is inevitable, but a life well lived, free from the weight of regret, is a choice we can make each day. Living with the awareness of our mortality does not mean recklessness. It does not mean throwing caution to the wind. Instead, it calls us to be intentional, to cherish our time, to say what must be said, to mend what must be mended, to release grudges, fears, and unnecessary burdens. Every interaction, every decision, every moment is an opportunity to live fully and without regret. This awareness fosters gratitude, encouraging us to appreciate even the smallest joys, a conversation with a friend, a kind gesture, or a moment of quiet reflection. At the end of each day, reflect on whether you lived in alignment with your values. Ask yourself, if this had been my last day, would I be content with how I spent it? If the answer is no, adjust accordingly. The goal is not perfection, but progress toward a life well lived. Progress means embracing growth, learning from our experiences, and taking action toward meaningful change. The more often we check in with ourselves, the more likely we are to make adjustments that prevent future regrets. When we recognize the fragility of life, we prioritize what truly matters. The distractions, the superficial worries, the petty disagreements, they lose their weight. Instead, we find ourselves more patient, more understanding, and more forgiving. We come to see that time spent holding on to resentment or unspoken words is time wasted. We begin to move with a sense of urgency, not out of fear, but out of a desire to make the most of every opportunity. Each conversation holds greater significance. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to strengthen bonds, and each experience, no matter how small, takes on a deeper meaning. This perspective instills a newfound appreciation for the present moment. We begin to understand that every sunrise we witness, every moment of laughter we share, and every challenge we overcome is a gift. Instead of waiting for the perfect time to express love, gratitude, or forgiveness, we act now. We reach out, we make amends, we take risks, knowing that regret is the byproduct of hesitation and inaction. In the end, the greatest tragedy is not death itself, but dying without having truly lived. The Stoics did not view death as something to be feared, but as a reminder to live fully, authentically, and without hesitation. They taught that true freedom lies in accepting our mortality, for once we let go of the fear of death, we become empowered to live with courage and clarity. We begin to embrace each day with the knowledge that it is finite and therefore priceless. Instead of postponing happiness for some distant future, we cultivate it in the present. Living with this mindset transforms how we engage with the world. Our priorities shift from fleeting concerns to enduring values. We stop chasing validation and material possessions and instead seek meaningful experiences and genuine relationships. We discover that happiness is not something we acquire, but something we create through our actions, thoughts, and choices. The pursuit of a regret-free life becomes synonymous with intentionality, purpose, and inner fulfillment.